Georgia. Coming up on today's show, we'll talk about what is happening in this state when it comes to early voting. Today is the third day of early voting. It all began on Monday, and groups like Georgia Stand Up, they are encouraging people, going around, canvassing across the city and the state, trying to get as many people to vote as possible in the January 5th runoff with John Ossoff and Warnock versus Republicans Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue. Also on today's show, we talk about body cam footage. First and foremost, lawyers in the case of a black man shot and killed in Lamarck, Texas, they want that body cam footage released in that particular shooting. Chicago is dealing with body camera footage that was shot last, cops busting into the wrong place of a naked black woman. And why did the Chicago mayor, a black woman herself, try to keep that video from being publicized by the local media? And there's also body camera footage showing one of the killers of one of the men involved in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery talking to police after that particular, about all three of those cases. Also in Georgia, a federal judge has found that there'd been a problem with voters who were purged. He is ordering the Secretary of State to sit down with civil rights groups. So we'll talk about that story as well. And what's going on with this rift involving Black Lives Matter? Money, power, control is at the root of the problem. And also in our Black Tech segment, you will meet the creator of a new software that connects the African American community, folks. And in Houston, a police captain arrested by driving a person off the road and pointing a gun at them, supposedly over voter suppression. Folks, it makes no sense whatsoever. All right, lots to deal with right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. It's time to bring the funk. Let's go. Folks, we are here in Georgia, the offices of Georgia Stand Up. Of course, one of the groups who is encouraging folks to get out and vote. They've been canvassing all across this state, trying to, again, increase the turnout in the January 5th November runoff. We'll talk in a minute with the leader of this organization about their efforts and what they're doing, what they're seeing and hearing on the ground. But a huge story that has developed, and that is, it deals with a federal judge found that inaccuracies in Georgia's voter purge and has ordered a meeting between civil rights leaders, first of all, civil rights organizers, and the Secretary of State's office to deal with exactly what happened. And again, remember, we covered this story. The folks with Black Voters Matter, ACLU, they sued the state saying that some 300 people, 1,000 people were wrongly purged. Well, according to ACLU, 198,000 people were erroneously purged out of that 300,000. Now, this federal judge is saying there were indeed inaccuracies and want these two groups to meet. Republicans have been doing all they can to sow seeds of discontent when it comes to voting, alleging voter fraud, but they can't provide any evidence of that. Senator David Perdue, what he is trying to do, he literally wants them to segregate. Listen to me. He wants them to segregate votes of people who registered after the November 3rd election. He's saying that if you did not vote in the November 3rd election, you should not be able to register and vote in the runoff. But the law allows for you to do so. And so lots of drama here in Georgia when it comes to that. Why is all of this important? It is because new polling out shows Pastor Raphael Warnock with a 7-point lead against Senator Kelly Loeffler. And in the other race, Democrat John Ossoff with a 2-point lead against Senator David Perdue. Republicans are scared to death. They are going to lose these two races. And what does that mean? That means it will be a 50-50 tie of Democrats in the United States Senate, and Vice President Kamala Harris will be the one to break a tie if it comes down to that. Let's talk about this here with our panel. Robert Portillo, Executive Director the Rainbow Push Coalition Peachtree Street Project, and they're one of the plaintiffs in this case. And then, of course, we'll talk in a minute with our panel. Robert, I want to start with you. So lay out to our viewers and listeners exactly what is going on with this lawsuit. What did the federal judge discover when y'all presented the evidence and the information to the federal court?
Well, I think it's important to credit to C.K. Hoffler, President of the National Bar Association, Gerald Griggs, Justice Fighter, who are spearheading this litigation as the legal representation. And it's still active litigation, but the order that came down from the judge today, if you go to the last page to the conclusion, he states that there are irregularities in the Georgia voter purge. Over 198,000 voters were questionably purged from the rolls, and the judge has found that there are inaccuracies in the way that was determined because the state used a third-party vendor.
I'm only talking, no.
Yeah. And the state used a third-party vendor to determine the individuals who would be purged. And further, the judge encouraged that these sides meet. Now, the Black Voters Matters, headed up by LaTosha Brown, many other organizations have continuously been asking for meetings with the Secretary of State. Now, the federal judge is putting his finger on the scale, demanding that such happens. Now, the judge did deny the injunctive relief, which we had requested. That was going to be a hard pull from the beginning. However, simply by the judge stating that there is evidence of irregularities in the way that this purge took place, it does encourage us that we will be able to get some action on this. And frankly, we've already this judge has articulated more evidence than any of the presidents in regards to voter fraud already. So this is active litigation that we believe could help re-enfranchise hundreds of thousands of Georgians.
So Robert, you talked about this third party. We previously had Greg Pallas on the show. What he said is that the vendor they use, they were not approved by the U.S. Postal Service, correct?
Correct. And so that's an important point to make.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Explain that.
Well, yeah. Well, the importance is that the reason you're supposed to use a vendor that is approved by the United States Postal Service is a governmental entity. You can't simply say that I'm going to get a list off of Amazon. I'm going to get a list from Google, and that's what I'm going to use to purge people. You have to have moved outside of the state, that they have died or something along those lines to justify the purge. So the Secretary of State's office cut corners in doing so. That's why our argument is restoring these people to the voter rolls. And as I said, it's being spearheaded by C.K. Hoffler and Gerald Griggs, and it's active litigation. We do believe that it's very encouraging that the judge found that there are irregularities, meaning that they could be that people were incorrectly purged from the rolls. And if the Secretary of State's office does not, a federal judge has said they need to meet with civil rights groups and voting rights groups, then that's clear evidence that they are purposefully suppressing the vote, not simply accidentally or doing some administrative process. And if you look at the number of states that have done voter purges around the country, we believe this could be a model for how they can fight back against voter suppression.
I want to bring in now Scott Bolden, of course, formerly chaired National Bar Association's Political Action Committee. Scott, this is why lawyers matter. And when Robert talked about providing relief to disenfranchised voters, the initial purge was 300,000. When the ACLU went back, they said 198,000 were wrongly purged. If you look at this election, let's just say, and most of the people are people of color, black folks are people of color. If you actually did a 70-30 split of that 198,000, the reality is this here. That's the difference between Ossoff winning the city